Chapter 25. Layla stood in the center of the home, which still bore the wreckage of her fight with Winston. A pack rested at her feet, loaded with everything she would need for a journey northward: food, water, blankets, tinder, and kindling, along with every knife she could find. After everything with Winston, she wasn't going anywhere without near half a dozen knives within easy reach. Still, she didn't feel ready. She danced at the tips of her fingers along her lower lip, looking around the modest home. She hadn't bothered to right the table or chairs, hadn't seen the point. Soon she'd be gone, and she doubted she would come back. Though to be fair, she doubted a lot at the moment. She hadn't the slightest idea where she would go, but she figured it would be the opposite direction of Winston. The captain could say all he wanted about a fighting chance, but if there were demons and death coming their way, Layla wanted nothing to do with it. Ah! Layla's eyes locked on the bookshelf. With the door latch broken, she'd gone ahead and slid the whole thing in front of the door. It was foolish. She knew at the moment she thought of it. Still, she removed one of her father's old books, one with a green leather cover and gold inlay, which had entranced her for hours growing up. She hadn't the slightest clue what it said or what it was about. As a little girl, she'd pretended she could read, imagining her father showing her the words, bringing them to life. Before he died, her father had started teaching her letters and sounds in the sounds that they made. It had been brief, an hour here or there, when he wasn't too tired or too consumed in his maps. She remembered nothing but the feeling of freedom held in those moments. Layla slid the book into her bag and then nodded to herself. Nearly there. She looked down at her dress, considering when a banging on the door shook the bookshelf so hard it would have toppled if she hadn't held it up. "Who's there?" she called, pulling a knife free from her hip. The pounding stopped, but the silence contained its own sort of fear. Layla started to imagine the door exploding inward, making for a horde of nightmarish creatures that would come streaming in. Or maybe it would be Winston again. Instead, a thick voice, whose every word seemed to weigh a millstone, called back, "Oi, I've come about your pup." A pause. "Layla, lass, is that you?" Layla breathed out, her shoulders crumpling in relief. "Inej." "Aye, it's me." She heaved against the side of the bookcase, wood scraping against wood. But once the bookcase slid past the doorframe, the door creaked open on its own, revealing the tanner. He knelt so the sight of him could fit in the doorframe, his braided beard hanging low near the ground. In his arms, he held a reddish-brown ball, laying eerily still. Tuck. "Thought I should bring him home." Inej placed Tuck gingerly into Layla's arms. Tuck was alive. She could feel the slow beat of his heart and his eyes flickering open to look at her. "He doesn't look good." "No, he don't," Inej said, nodding. He bent a tad lower, so Layla could meet his eyes. Or see them, at least. Looking them straight on wasn't easy. "Your brother stumbled out the wood yesterday. Near dead, the two of them. But I'll be a two-horned black cat if them Strayazar and their hounds don't hold on to life like bark on a tree." Layla shrugged. She hadn't the slightest idea what a two-horned black cat was, though she imagined Tuck with black fur and horns, figuring that was probably close enough. She turned and carefully carried Tuck toward the fireplace. She needed to get a flame going for him. He felt too cold. "Will he be all right?" Inej stroked his beard and looked awkward. Inej stroked his beard. He looked awkward, squatting down to be seen through the doorway, but he didn't seem bothered by it. "If he had a chance, maybe. It'd be a long road, though, and I ain't sure it'll matter." "No, I guess not." Layla had forgotten about Tuck, nearly marching north without even considering the pup. Ollie had said Tuck was with Inej, nearly dead, but Layla hadn't seen him, and she'd forgotten. She stood and stretched, and then did her best to look straight at the Velk. That wasn't an easy feat, though, with his unnatural blue eyes beside the strange milkiness and ink blot of the other. She looked away a moment later with a cough, her face warming. They were so strange, those eyes. Every time she saw them, she felt like she witnessed something private, like she had walked in on Inej stripping down for washing. He ain't up for travel, eh? She said. Travel? Aye, travel. Where you going? Anywhere, away. I don't want to be here when... How long until the Yelmez arrived? Days, hours? Inej shook his head and leaned his hand just inside the doorway. The whole home groaned. Quickest way to get killed, if you ask me. That's what the captain said. The captain? Aye, the captain. Ty Bolt or something like it. He's with the princess. Says everyone who's left is gonna... Well, that they aren't gonna make it. Inej said nothing. He looked sad, like someone had strung a weight about his neck, and he'd been forced to remember everything bad that had ever happened. Layla began to right the chairs and table, wanting to busy her hands. Captain's right, Inej said. They won't make it. The Yelmez ain't known for mercy. Women, children, don't matter. If they want to, they can chase him and cut him down like stalks a week. It'll be quick enough, which I suppose is a mercy. Layla imagined Winston's body cut down and left to rot. Hate him or not, she didn't want him dead. And then Inej's words settled in. Women and children. Layla could see them too, the Gorkin family with their little army of toddlers. Miss Wingler, the Fletcher twins. She didn't actually know who had left with the totes, but she could imagine. Layla bit her lip and shook the thoughts away. And how do you know anyways? She asked. You make it sound like you've run into them before. Inej said nothing, and when Inej looked up, she saw the Velk watching her carefully. His breathing was loud, his nostrils flaring gently. Layla laughed uncomfortably. You can't tell me you've seen them before, right? Inej sighed. Best thing to do now is settle in for a fight. I don't want it, mind you, but fleeing won't do any good. And besides, we've won before, eh? That was an epoch ago. Inej nodded. Then we'll see if the race of men can remember their courage. He stood, his face disappearing beyond the doorframe. Layla watched as he leaned forward, his hand taking something out of view, which had been leaning against the side of the Riker home. A spear and a shield. Layla caught her breath as Inej hefted them. The spear was as thick as the corner post of her home, the shield a shade larger than the open door. And don't count your brother out just yet, Inej called, his voice muffled, dispersed throughout the whole home like the voice of Deus rattling the shingles. And then he left, his boots pounding dirt as he made his way up the hill.